Speech is verbal art. That's what it is. It is just crafting stories and really impacting your audience and getting them to lean in. And then, like, what do you do when they lean back? And like your pace, your tone. I mean, like, there's just a lot to it.
We want to become the in-demand go-to person in our niche, like, right, Jamie? And I feel like when we get a chance to learn more from somebody who specializes in speaking skills, like, we immediately think, I'm not going to speak on a stage, or I would love to speak on a stage, but that would require finding an event and then pitching lots of events and then how do I actually, introduce myself or sell myself to get accepted in the roster at an event? Welcome back to the Art of Online Business podcast. And if you're listening right now and you've heard that speaking skills could help your visibility and help you sell more of your courses and help you become the go-to expert in your niche, but you've been wondering, how do you quantify these nebulous speaking skills and master them? Well, you're going to like this episode and the next episode. I'm here with Laurie-Ann, and she is a speaking and visibility coach. She is, as she says, a reformed, painfully shy gal who accidentally became a professional speaker. She works with coaches and consultants to write and deliver captivating presentations to establish credibility, attract ideal clients, and monetize their authority. She combines her years as an award-winning professional speaker, executive leadership coach, and her obsession with neuroscience. I like that. Laurie-Ann is the best-selling author of Rethink Leadership and Rethink Your Leadership, and the host of the Be in Demand podcast. A few of her clients, the notable ones, are Johnson & Johnson, the American Cancer Society, Bali Mastermind, and I saw on your website the U.S. Army. Welcome to the show, Laurie.
Thank you. Thank you. I have worked with the military and the Air Force. Yeah. Yeah. They are a lot of fun, especially as they're approaching retirement. It's like, what am I going to do for the next half of my life?
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's still a long time.
And that is a true story that I am a reformed, painfully shy girl who couldn't even make eye contact with people. It's hard to believe now, but that was once upon a time in my life.
Okay, let's go into that then,
Yeah.
because in a moment, I'll ask you to share a snapshot of your business as it is today in the beginning of 2025. And then we'll go back, to kind of touch on some of the highlights and challenges that you've had in building your business. But I did see, and when I read that, I thought I was lacking for friends in high school, and definitely the definition of a wallflower when I even was lucky enough to be invited to parties, quite shy, didn't know how to have a conversation or be engaging. So how did you reform yourself as a painfully shy girl?
So I would say it was late in my teens. Just like yourself, a little bit more of a wallflower. My family did move overseas for a couple of years. We're not a military family. And this was back in the day when it really wasn't a cool thing to do. It was just like, why are you moving to Japan? Okay. And so came back, and I remember, so I was at work and I'm watching my friends, like we're in a break room, and I'm watching the way that they engage with people and also the way that they engage with customers. And I literally had this epiphany, like, this behavior of not making eye contact is not going to serve me in the long run. I have got to learn how to look people in the eye and have a conversation. So I literally just dared myself, if you will, look at somebody while they're talking, look at somebody while I'm speaking, even just for a few seconds, and then I could look away. And so I did that. And here's what I noticed: the earth did not open up and swallow me whole. And the person that I was talking to didn't laugh at me. And so that was all the positive reinforcement that I needed. I was just like, okay, let me see if I can do it a little bit longer next time. And that's all that I did.
Wow.
Wow.
You yourself had the epiphany to look people in the eye. I don't hear that often.
Download, but also it was the observing other people. And it was just like, so there was obviously this desire of, I want to be like that. So they were my role models.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
So you sort of had this deep-seated fear beneath that like, if I look people in the eye, then they're gonna make fun of me, they're gonna not like me, or right.
So I do have this shy streak, and so I just want people to know this shy streak still shows up from time to time, but I at least have the awareness now where I can just be like, okay, go away. Like, I got this. I'm safe. You're not protecting me from anything. Because that's probably some 5-year-old that just kind of like surfaces once in a while.
Gotcha, gotcha. No, it really does help though to be outgoing and meet people, even if like we're on the extrovert side of the spectrum. My high school experience was miserable because I didn't know how to talk to people or
And you kinda did the same thing though too, right? You sort of just decided all by yourself, like, when I get to college, I'm gonna be friendly, right? Like, I'm gonna
mm,
have friends. Didn't you sort of decide that?
I did decide, but it was because I broke down in I think it was my last year in high school, and I asked my mom, who is pretty friendly, like, how I can have friends, and she's like, "You can have friends just by smiling and meeting people," and, yeah, I did make a conscious decision to, when I went to college, it's like, I'm just going to meet people, and I went a little overboard. Like, I remember freshman year in the dorms, as soon as I got there, like, I would just hang out in the cafeteria, and it was nice to eat multiple meals, but really, like, what I would do is I would just sit down with, like, a new table of folks, and then, like, when they got eating, I would just go to another table of people and hang out and make brand new friends, and I remember, like, discovering all the intriguing people that you can meet when you go to, a university coming from high school, and I remember, like, meeting these 2 girls, and they had, like, leopard print everything in their dorm room, and so, like, I was intrigued because it was like, leopard literally everything from the pillowcases to the bed sheets to whatever you call those, like, thin, like, plastic laminate covers that you could put on, like, your windowsill. I don't know what they're called, but it was
Yeah.
it was great. So what I started doing is, taking people on tours to their bedroom, and so they were happy because they were famous, and I would just use that as kind of like the icebreaker if the conversation just kinda went quiet at the, um, table in the dining hall or in the cafeteria that, "Hey, I met these 2 girls and they're really cool, let's go see their room." And so, that was the beginning of, me being popular in,
I think we just find our way of doing that. Like, I now have, like, literally taught my nervous system. I walk into a networking event or a conference, and I don't wait for somebody to turn to me and extend their hand. I'm gonna be the one that sits at the table and starts up a conversation like, "Hi, what compelled you to join this breakout session? I'm Laurie-Ann." It's a little more automatic now for me. Thank goodness.
Mhm.
well, we need people like you because I think
Mhm.
most of us, even the most outgoing, most trained socialites, like we all can experience that bit of intimidation and that tendency to be quiet when we're in a new room.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So why don't you give us a snapshot of your business as it is today?
As it is today. So, I will take you back to 2017, which was excuse me, which was a time when I was actually doing a lot of leadership speaking. Literally coming home, like from a trip, wash the clothes, throw them back in the suitcase because I was picking up that suitcase and getting on another flight the next day. Something happened in Fort Lauderdale that most people don't remember. So, here I was, a leadership speaker, executive coach, and here in the United States, where you're allowed to travel with your firearms if you want to, and if you have the right paperwork. And yes, you can. If you have the right paperwork, you can. On Well, it has to be in your baggage. That your checked baggage. So you can't have some sort of a gun, in the
You carry yeah,
by your
100%.
seat.
Yeah.
Okay. Just sitting right next to your airplane
Just
nuts,
in case.
and your airplane cookies. Okay. Good.
Yes.
Oh my god.
So, t baggage claim is out of TSA's jurisdiction. So the gentleman who was traveling with his firearm and the proper paperwork grabbed his bag, went into the men's room, put his semi-automatic rifle together, and came out shooting. Now, the FAA literally like runs the aviation globally. So every plane that was in the air landed at the nearest airport. Thank goodness he only killed 2 people. I say thank goodness because I'm sure it could have been a whole lot more. And I can't remember how many people were injured, but just every flight came to a screeching halt because they were afraid of a copycat. Where else was this going to happen globally? And I remember saying, oh my God. I mean, like I was traveling a lot. My husband was traveling a lot. And I just said, universe, I need a new business model. 2 weeks later, I got a text message from somebody that said, Laurie-Ann, do you write speeches for people? And I was like, well, no. But because I knew who she was, I was like, oh, I'll help you. And like most of us entrepreneurs, I'm giving you the abbreviated story here. I fell in love with it. She knocked it out of the park with her first presentation, and it completely changed her business. So I was like, oh, I wonder if anybody else wants to know what I know, which brought me into the online world, which I gotta say is a whole new set of rules from it, and this is 2017. And so I fumbled my way in the online world because I didn't understand what the rules were. I knew what they were for public speaking and getting booked for conferences and working with companies like that I've worked with, some pretty big companies. But that's what brought me here.
Okay.
Wow.
And
But
I
to
will,
clarify,
yeah, pardon, go ahead.
no, I was wanting to know about this gun story. Was that at the airport that you were at, or you were in the sky on another flight that was grounded?
No, I was actually at home, but I'd been doing a lot. Like I was probably leaving the very next day. And I think my husband was away. So there I was, like on the cell phone trying to contact him. And I've only experienced a busy signal on a cell phone one other time, and that was 9/11.
Oh.
Yeah, 9/11, that
Mhm.
would do it.
Mhm.
So I got a busy signal, so I couldn't get a hold of him. But I believe that he wasn't anywhere in Florida. So yeah, thank you for the clarification. Yeah, I was not in Fort Lauderdale. I wasn't at that airport. It just impacted me so deeply.
Right. Right.
Naturally.
So going back, so you started helping people write speeches. Did you just reach out to people that you already knew in your kind of in your circle, or how did it really get formulated?
So with I decided that I couldn't write the speech for her because there's parts of writing a speech that, I mean, like the reason why my stories resonate with the audience is because I'm telling it from my point of view. So I shared with her so I shared with her, this is how you write a speech. And we wrote it together, but she did the writing so that now she doesn't have to memorize something that I wrote.
Mm. Mhm.
So I taught her how to, like these are the components that make a really good speech. This is what you say so that the people in your audience, like they stay engaged. And like we can dive into that if you want, but
Oh, we are. On the next
oh,
episode.
we are.
Will, don't you worry.
Like there's an art. There's just an art. Like I call it like a speech is verbal art. That's what it is. It is just crafting stories and really impacting your audience and getting them to lean in, and then like what do you do when they lean back and like your pace, your tone. I mean, like there's just a lot to it. And I had so much fun teaching her this. And she is a stylist. She went from a government job. She was just waiting 3 more years to retire. And this was going to be her being a stylist was going to become her retirement gig. And, like when you're three years away from retiring at a government job, she's like, you'll stand on your head for 3 years. But she finished out her 3 years and yeah, she went into becoming a stylist.
Okay, okay.
Wow.
So I'm gonna say, dear listener, like what we're talking about, And before we hit record, one thing that is on my heart is like we want to become the in-demand go-to person in our niche, like, right, Jamie?
Mhm.
And I feel like when we get a chance to learn more from somebody who specializes in speaking skills, like we immediately think, oh, but I'm not going to speak on a stage, or I would love to speak on a stage, but that would require finding an event and then pitching lots of events because and then how do I actually, introduce myself or sell myself to get accepted in the roster at an event? And oh my gosh, those other speakers. And then we just put it off and we think that that's the only place where these speaking skills will apply. And Laurie-Ann is shaking her head. No, 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 no. So that's all I'm going to say is in the next episode, we are going to talk specifically about redefining a stage, and a stage that you speak on is not just a physical stage. It's actually we all are doing it day in and day out in our content. And Laurie-Ann's going to give us a bunch of tips, right, Laurie-Ann?
Yes, I am.
Cool. Very, very cool. I still want to know what your business looks like right now, but before that, I will say one more thing to the listener, which is down in the show notes below, there is a link. It is speakandstandout.com, speakandstandout.com /guide. And if you want to figure out how to get started in speaking to grow your podcast, or exactly what to say right here for more bookings, clients, and opportunities, then in addition to like how to feel like a pro even if you've never stepped on stage before, and we just said stage is not just a physical stage, it's video, it's YouTube, it's Instagram, it's TikTok, then head down to that link and grab that guide, and you'll be well on your way. So snapshot of your business now, Laurie-Ann.
Snapshot now is so I started off mostly just doing one-on-one work because I came into the online world. I was an executive coach. That's all that I knew. I'd never done a group program. So today my business looks like a group program that I run that's called In-Demand Signature Speech, and also working with clients privately. And I am just trying for the first time an evergreen do-it-yourself in-demand signature speech. And I have my first person who just purchased that. And so so the feedback that I'm getting is she's really enjoying it. She goes, she's taken the baby steps, step by step. Yeah. So that's what my business looks like now compared to 2017 when I came into this. It was just one-on-one work.
Gotcha.
Okay.
An evergreen in-demand program for what's the title of that?
It's a start anytime in-demand signature speech.
Start anytime in-demand signature speech. Can you break down this concept of a signature speech? I feel like I should know, but I'll listen to your words.
That's okay. This is how I teach people to write a speech. And it's to take your audience through the neuroscience that they're experiencing while they're sitting in your audience. And your audience can be in person or virtual, or even if they're just watching you, a video. So you need to capture their attention. We have to give our audience a reason to put their phone down or to ignore that bing that goes off. Okay, so we capture their attention. And what happens with your audience is they lean in because they want to know more. But what happens next? Thank you, both of you. But
We're leaning in. If you
We're
can't
leaning
see us
in.
on YouTube,
you're leaning
or
in.
we're
And
leaning
then
in.
what happens is your audience, and I don't want to get too far away from my microphone, but they lean back and they start to cross their arms. And what's going through their heads is, but why should I listen to you? So I call this next block your authority section. It's conversational. It's not a boring resume, that you're reading off to them and here's all my accomplishments, folks. And this is why, like, we need to give the audience like, oh, like Laurie-Ann's a reformed painfully shy girl and then she's got like 25 years of speaking experience. Like that gives the audience a reason to continue to listen to the end. And then you have what I call the meat of your presentation. It's like the meat of the sandwich, okay? And you are allowed in a 1-hour presentation, you are allowed to share 3 tips. 3, just 3. The human the human brain just loves 3, by the way. So, with those 3 tips, I tell my students and my clients, you become a lawyer now. You now have to defend that tip, that point. So think of it as a 3-legged table. If you take one of those legs out, that table's just gonna fall over. So 3 data points. So those data points can be a case study, a metaphor, research. You're talking about a client's story. 3 pieces of information that people like, "Oh, okay, get it." And then you would move on. You do the exact same thing for your next point and your next point. And then you segue beautifully into your call to action. And so I might say something like, and this is what I typically do say, there is no way that I could share with you 25 years of speaking experience in 50 minutes. So, but what I have for you, I have a special gift for you. And what happens is because I've already built that know, like, and trust and given them really good information, really valuable information, the people that are ready for this are going to raise their hand and say yes. And they're going to grab whatever that call to action is, whether it's to book a call, to download something, etc. And then you have a beautiful close where you just basically wrap your beautiful presentation up in a beautiful bow and ta-da.
Ta-da.
You make it sound so straightforward,
Right?
It is
especially
pretty
the
straightforward.
yeah. No, my mind just jumped on the, okay, how to grab their attention right in the beginning, and then the authority section, like why listen to me, and then only 3 things can I
Mhm.
teach.
In a 1-hour presentation. In a 1-hour presentation. Now, the shorter the presentation, you might only be able to do 2 with 3 pieces of data. Or again, it depends on like how long you're speaking for. Or you might only be able to give 2 pieces of data. Yes, the tabletop might fall over, but that's because you're speaking for a shorter period of time.
I
Well, I
just
think of like
yeah.
our pastor every Sunday, like his messages and stuff. There's, I mean, it's what, 30, maybe 40 minutes
Okay, yeah,
of
yeah.
preaching. And so, but there's always 3 points, right? No more, usually not less. It's always 3.
You're
So,
right.
and there's usually like, the story or engaging part. And yeah, so
That makes
yeah.
sense. It makes partial sense to me because it's we're in Mexico, and so he's preaching in Spanish. But for the most part, yeah, no, I can follow the 3
But
points.
even,
Yeah.
yeah, like other pastors and stuff, I feel like usually it's always 3 points because you're right. That's all our brain can really handle.
Our brain love yeah, I got to explain why 3 for everybody who's listening. And because I share this with my clients also in their proposals to work like basically like to do a consulting or even if you're speaking for a company, it's like here are the 3 different options. And the reason is if I only gave you one option, you'd be like, not sure I like that. But there's nothing else. There's no other item. It'd be like going to a restaurant and here's the one thing that we make. This is it. You want it or not? No. So now when there's 2 options, the human brain says, I don't really like that, but I only have that as an option. But when you have 3, I don't like that, but ooh, I have a choice because there's 2 more. Which one do I like better? And it works really, really well in a proposal for some sort of a conference that you might be keynoting. It might be, I'm just going to speak for that 1 hour. Number 2 can be, I'm going to speak for that 1 hour and I'll even speak on day 2 for 30 or 40 minutes. And your third option could be, I will do everything in option number 2, plus I'll coach some of your top people. And so it changes in pricing also. Here's what the bare minimum that I'm going to leave the house for and not feel like I'm being gypped. Number 2 is what I really, really want to do for this organization. And number 3 is for those VIPs because people are People who normally like CEOs might be VIPs and like, yeah, I want to go with that option and give my top people some extra coaching.